First thing I'd like to do is call a roll. The mayor's not here. He's at business in Charlotte. Mayor Pro Tem is here. Councilman Robin Bart.
Yes.
Councilman Kevin Spears. All right. Councilman Luke Waddell. Councilman Celeste Andrews.
Here.
Councilman David Joyner.
Here.
And as I mentioned earlier, Mayor Bill Sappho is absent. All right, please let me know when Kevin gets on. Thanks. Our invocation is going to be done by Chaplain James of the Wilmington Fire Department. The Pledge of Allegiance. We have 4 presentations on tomorrow night. Recognition of the Coastal Cowboys cheerleaders winning the national championship. City of Wilmington, New Hanover County Workforce Housing Advisory Committee annual update, and that'll be by Ms. Brantley. She's the chair. Annual greenhouse gas emissions report. Dave Mays, the director of the Public Works, will share that. And then we have a presentation of the 2023 year-end crime statistics by our chief, Donnie Williams. Okay, and
Excuse
Kevin
me.
is online. Thank you. All right. Consent agenda, C1, approval of minutes of the agenda briefing meeting on January 8th, 2024. C2, resolution awarding a contract to Lanier Tree Services, LLC, in the amount of $113,650 from Park and Recreation operating funds for removal of 31 trees from city rights-of-ways, to include stump grinding of trees, and the budget impact, again, is $113,650. Public information, we have a public hearing. Our ordinances are as follows.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, sir, Mr. Spears.
Good morning. I just wanted to, state for the record that I'm here, so, there won't be any misinterpretation.
Thank you, sir. We got that word.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
All right.
All right. 01, ordinance amending Chapter 5, Article 2, Section 5-15 of the Wilmington City Code as it relates to medians. 02, ordinance making supplemental appropriation in the amount of $8,150 to the Special Purpose Fund for the installation of artwork in Riverfront Park from the Cape Fear Garden Club's Beautification Endowment Fund grant. Budget impact, $8,150. Ordinance 03A is an ordinance appropriating funding from the City of Wilmington, New Hanover County, and the New Hanover County School District to the Legion Stadium Synthetic Turf Field Replacement Project. Budget impact, $690,000. 03B, resolution authorizing an interlocal agreement with New Hanover County and the New Hanover County School Board for the replacement of Legion Stadium Synthetic Turf Field. Budget impact, $690,000. Resolution 1, resolution to establish a steering committee framework for Greater Downtown Special Area Plan. R2, the resolution authorizing filing of condemnation actions for acquisitions of right-of-way and easement for Pine Grove North project parcels numbers 6, 16, 18, 22, and 26, as shown in the map on Book 72 at page 174 of the New Hanover County Registry, North Carolina, funded by the Transportation Bond. Resolution 3. Resolution 3, authorizing lease of real property at 929 North Front Street to the Wilmington and Beaches Convention and Visitors Bureau. Then we'll have a report, RP1, from the Council Appointments Committee for Boards and Commissions. Councilmember Charlie Robin Bart chairs that. All right. Items we brought forth, Mr. City Manager.
Morning, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, members of council.
Good morning.
This morning we have 2 presentations for you. The first one will come from Kim Huffam with the Convention and Visitors Bureau.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy Monday morning early. I said I'm not used to these presentations quite on first thing Monday morning, but great. But glad to be here. Thank you all, as I've been able to say to many of you, for your support throughout the years of tourism. To give you a little bit of background, what I'm going to be bringing forth to you today is our Riverwalk assessment and recommendations that we've had, and also being able to look at the use of ARPA funds that have been set aside for some tourism projects with those. So just a little bit of background as we began. We had some conversations back about a year or so ago. The mayor of course, Mayor Sappho is on our board of the TDA board. And so we had some conversations. We had heard a few kind of negative type comments about the Riverwalk, nothing major, but just enough to concern us from some writers and things like that. And we thought, well, maybe we need to step back and take a look at how we could actually improve. Not that it's not great, not that it's not beautiful already, but how we could do some improvements. So what I'm going to do is walk through you a little bit about the process. We're going to look at some of the suggestions that came out of that assessment, and then from there how we would like to take the ARPA funds and be able to meld those kind of in together to work on some of these. So the purpose of the study itself was to identify and assess gaps in promotional opportunities in Wilmington's Riverwalk, which, if addressed, would elevate the Riverwalk to a signature attraction to make the destination more competitive as a leisure, meetings, and sports destination. A little bit of background. As I said, we, the Wilmington and Beaches Convention and Visitors Bureau, worked with the City of Wilmington, especially one of our deputy city managers, Chad McEwen, was instrumental in working with us hand in hand as we went through this process. And we sent out an RFP, and we hired a consultant to develop a Riverwalk assessment for Wilmington, North Carolina. The assessment was conducted over a 6-day period last year in May, with suggestions and recommendations delivered in July of 2023. At that time, a committee was formed with members from the following organizations. We had City of Wilmington, Wilmington Downtown Inc., Wilmington Chamber of Commerce, the Downtown Business Alliance, Wilmington Convention Center, downtown stakeholders, as well as, of course, the Wilmington and Beaches CVB. We've been having monthly committee meetings since we've established the committee and had the study, and been reviewing, looking through, and prioritizing the suggestions that came from this Riverwalk assessment. We were able to go through and identify both short-term and long-term goals, and then working with the committee, we formulated a proposed budget for presentation to you today, City Council, for the ARPA fund approval. So as I start out, one of the things that the consultant, and we worked with is a consulting firm actually out of Washington State. They're known, though, they've done over almost 1,000 different destinations all over the world as far as coming in and assessing and giving suggestions, et cetera, what could be done. The name of the group was our Destination Development Group. And the first thing he said as he got up there before he even started was, we're doing a great job. As I said, the Riverwalk is beautiful. It draws our visitors as well as our residents, but there's always some room for improvement. So that's the first thing he wanted to start. He said our city, police, public works, doing a great job. You know, they were very visible as he was out there. Our downtown ambassador program was very visible. He said that is a plus. Tourism, you know, he saw visitors. They really came in from the point of view of a tourist. They didn't even stay downtown because he really wanted to be able to assess, like, if you drove into town, how do you find the Riverwalk? You know, if you're a visitor, you don't know town, what do you do to find it? So he really looked at it through, even though he was a visitor, through the eyes, so we could really look at what points we needed to improve on the tourism side. Our community development, he said, was on point, as well as our economic development, you know. But again, we want to make sure that that Riverwalk, you know, isn't just a beautiful walking path, that it's also an economic generator for our city as a whole. So what he did was he came up with 10 key areas with suggestions to consider, adopt, and then implement. And what I'm going to do is run through those pretty quickly, and I'll be glad to take any questions you may have on the suggestions that he had. The first one he said, and we all know can be an issue in any type of downtown or whatever, was the parking. Just some of the suggestions he threw out there, and I've tried to, the document itself is about 300 pages, so I did pretty much boil it down for you today. The first one, as you can see, down at the bottom of our Market Street, girl, only 2 hours, buy 1 hour, add a half hour. Make it easier. Make it easier for the residents and visitors that come downtown. He talked about just simple things like simplifying and being consistent across all of our parking decks. And also, when you look at the bottom photo on your left, he talks about, is this public or privately owned? Post-ownership fees and time limits. So a lot of it's just back to, simple things that can be done to have better signage for our parking areas. The second thing was gateways to the Riverwalk. He said when he got there, to be honest, he really didn't know he was there. So what can we do to better improve our gateways so when a visitor does come into town, they know that they're there, they have arrived. Because if you put Wilmington Riverwalk in a GPS, it's not necessarily going to take you to the foot of Market Street. So again, some things that we might. One of the things he said that, when you think about it and you go down to the foot of Market Street, that's kind of our first bird's eye view of the river and across. And if you see that picture during peak season, it's kind of sandwich board heaven down there, And he was saying, keep the sandwich boards limited, either only on their premises or in a specific area. He said there should be a major gateway sign, something to invite the people and let them know when they get there that they're there. So we've had lots of discussion. We've actually talked with some planning and engineering and working with the city to come up with some possible ideas of what we would like. Of course, all this is just a sample to look at. But one of the things, and you'll see in a moment when we get into the budget, we would like to put some of the ARPA funds into actually doing some signage, not just do a welcome, more of a entrance gateway sign, as well as some secondary gateway signage and wayfinding signage. Visitor information. Of course, we operate the visitor information booth that is at the foot of Market Street, and it has very successful. It is by far has 3 to 4 times the number of visitors that come there each year compared to any of the other centers we do. So we know that is really a hot spot, a great location. But are there some things that we could do that would better improve it? So one of the things that we're going to be doing actually on the CVB side, but also looking at hopefully for some of the ARPA funding, is to add a visitor information kiosk, whether it's actually built into the building or if it's freestanding, et cetera, but to do a electronic one that would be 24/7, where the visitor could come up, so if the visitor center's not open, that they're able to get the information, and some other improvements down there that really put the information at the visitors' fingertips when they get here, and that way they're able to explore not only the Riverwalk but also up as we come into our downtown area. And if you see on the bottom right-hand corner, this is a sample of one that they actually have up at Blowing Rock. They have a couple of those, so we're looking at doing something like that again, maybe at each end of the Riverwalk and at the foot of Market possibly. Cleanup and screening. This is a pretty simple one as far as, working with our downtown partners. But these are just some of the areas that he pointed out. The top one with the top one on the left, he talked about either repair or get rid of it, some of the boat docks. Some of the benches, just things such as just painting them, making sure that the maintenance and painting. Working with some of our merchants, you see down on the bottom left-hand side, cleaning up, some pressure washing and that type of thing. And the bottom right-hand one is, just some screening, not make the garbage cans quite so visible so it's an attractive look when people are walking through there. Pedestrian wayfinding, this really falls back again into when we talked about the gateway sign. These would work together because we would love to have something uniform. If you've been downtown, we have signs. There's no doubt we have signs about how to get around, but we also have 3 or 4 signs of different types and those types of things. So one of the steps would be, of course, is to bring in a consultant to look at it, be able to do an inventory of what we have now, and then how do we make it uniform where it's easy for visitors to be able to follow. When they see that sign, they know that that is the sign that takes them to the information that they're looking for. So he said, excuse me, such as, some of the ones we have up here, they need to continue all the way down the Riverwalk. We need to add more Explore 2 signs along the Riverwalk so people know that they can be on the Riverwalk and come into shopping and dining and loads of things to do, and vice versa. They can be in town and point to the Riverwalk and be able to do that. So actually put some of our wayfinding signs on the Riverwalk itself. And again, I threw this up because this has both the primary as well as some of the secondary and the wayfinding signage ideas. Public restrooms, we know that's always a sticking point whenever we talk about downtown, and it's probably the number one thing we hear from a visitor is, where are your restrooms? So we do know that that's an issue. We have been working, we've worked with the city, we worked with WDI and the CBB. We are trying, one of the questions he had is, where are the public restrooms? Add signage to them so people can find them. You know, there are some, I think, public restrooms down at the Riverfront Park now. Of course, we have the one there at the Visitor Center, et cetera. And also, public restrooms should be where we show them on the map. So as I said, we've been looking at what downtown maps are available and trying to make sure that we all are in sync with where the public restrooms are identified. And I know that as far as on the CBB side, we've just now published our new guide map, and we've updated it with the correct locations for restrooms. And I know that working with Chance and some of the city folks, they're working on the same thing. So number 7 is invite us back. One of the things that he talked about was adding a banner or a reader board at the park. If you see where the purple just showed up on your screen, he was saying, why not put there that has upcoming concerts for 2024? So when someone leaves, they can look up and say, wow, well, you know, I really enjoyed this. Let me come back. I can come back on date because those are very accessible and readable. And again, a lot of these are just very simple things that can be implemented that, of course, they cost some money, but not a tremendous amount. And then he was saying, you know, just to let them know, we do know we still have some construction along the Riverwalk, but add signage, renderings of what's happening here, and invite people back through that to come see when we're finished. Activating the Riverwalk, and we know that this is a big project to activate the Riverwalk, but he said that the missing ingredient is really some type of programming as we move forward. And again, we know, as I said, some of these are short-term, some of these are longer-term. He's saying we should have activities 250 days a year on the Riverwalk. Imagine a swing out on the Riverwalk, just things that invite people to come down and stay. Some of the examples he gave us were as simple as like the concrete chess and checkerboards, you know, the big ones that you set out, where people, that way it's inviting them to come down, spend time, bring their families, have activities to do. So there's lots of things that can be under this one. And as I said, you know, some of these are more long-term goals than immediate. Number 9, the main attraction. He talked about several different things that he felt like that we could do that would add some life to our Riverwalk. One of them is adding a selfie or a photo spot here along the Riverwalk. And if you'll see on the far right, the Wilmington NC with the lady sitting on it, we're looking at investing in doing a selfie station. Have it backed up where if they took the picture, they'd have the Wilmington NC overlooking the river and the battleship in the background. We have the most beautiful natural background for people, but something to invite them that to come down, you know, and then of course, you know, we all know all about the posting and the Instagram and the hashtags, doing that as well. But again, just something that continues, it helps us market. It gets our name out through, you know, the going viral and those types of things with that. So that was just one of the ideas we're looking at is the possibility of doing some type of selfie station. Long-term goal, we would love to have some type of event that is down at the river. You know, of course, during the summer, we'd love to see it maybe start in the summer and expand it out as it grows. These are just a couple of things, anything from fountains to water projection screens and those types of things. Again, these are big money. These are more long-term projects, but again, bringing life and bringing activities to the riverfront. And last but not least, hopefully you all had an opportunity sometime during the holidays to go down and see the lights that were able to be put up. We were able to, through WDI, working with them, they were able to do a small portion of the Riverwalk this year, but our goal is to next year is to expand it and move it on down. And this was just a really pretty shot. This is from across the river looking back, but you can see the effect, even that amount, the amount of lights that we were able to purchase and have put up. up did to our riverfront area. Imagine that going in both directions, you know. And again, we would like to add the lights, but also add some marketing efforts where we get out to the visitors that, hey, our riverfront is lit up. It's beautiful to come down, shop, enjoy the lights, have entertainment, those types of things as well. And last, number 10 was just kind of a potpourri of different little things that he put together. He said things such as putting down crosswalk markings. You know, when visitors are here, they're not sure exactly where do you cross the street. How do you get over to the Riverwalk, you know? So again, make our entrances to the Riverwalk more accessible, more easily found by the visitor themselves. The benches, he said, these are fantastic. Now, could you add maybe a little table or somewhere where they could set drinks or whatever and really sit there? Again, encouraging people to stay and enjoy the Riverwalk and spend time down there. So as we look at the ARPA funding, as I said, some of these projects we knew that either didn't qualify, would not fall under ARPA, or were more long-term type projects. So the ones that the committee, when we went through and prioritized, we felt like would best fit would be the Gateway, the holiday promotions and lighting, the signage and wayfinding, the reader boards, and the selfie station. And so with that, we understood working with Chad that the amount that had been set aside was $650,000 on the tourism side for ARPA. So we had broken that down to, with the Gateway there at Market and Water Streets, you know, of course this wouldn't pay for the entire, but at least get it started. The seed money to get the plans and those types of things going would be $70,000. The holiday lights promotion and marketing we had at $400,000. Signage and wayfinding, again, looking at, and that would tie in and work hand in hand with the Gateway project, would be $150,000. The reader boards at $15,000, and the selfie station at $15,000. So that would be the total budget of the $650,000 that would be allotted through the ARPA funding. And with that, I'm glad to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions from anybody? Yes, ma'am.
So if you go back to that last slide about
I'll be glad to, my dear.
the
Let me go
budget.
back. You got it.
So explain to me about the holiday lights promotion and marketing.
Okay, the $400,000, one thing we did find out in our little, kind of our pilot this year, lights are very expensive. So we wanted to take part of those dollars, probably the bulk of those would actually be to purchase the lights, which would become the property, you know, of the city, and, you know, we'd be able to use them again and again and again and again. It's barring no storms, like we had that little storm that came through and got a few of them. So part of that would be that, and then on the marketing side, we at the CVB would work and market that we, you know, through our holiday promotions. What we're working really hard on is being able to pull together that Wilmington is a Christmas holiday destination. You know, you hear about other cities and their lights. Well, we want to be able to elevate ourselves that we, hey, come down, we have the riverfront lights, we have Enchanted Airlie, which unless they buy tickets in September, they're not going to get there, but you know, those types of things. So that's what the marketing dollars would go. So we would work with WDI, with Christina and her group at Wilmington Downtown Inc., because they took the lead on the actual light project itself, and be able to expand the number of lights that we're able to buy, and as I said, expand it on down, and then be able to promote it.
So were the lights contracted this past year? I mean, we obviously didn't buy them. I mean,
Well, WDI bought them this year. Yeah,
Okay.
they bought the initial ones, and then they did contract with someone to put them up, yes.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right. Yes, sir. Mrs.
Great presentation. Appreciate all that you do, and bringing all this information to us is always important and something I enjoy hearing. But what's been the discussion with WDI? Because they did purchase a good amount of lights, and I think they're budgeting to do more next year. So what's been the conversation between your organization and WDI on how to leverage one another to get more lights downtown? I think that is something the community really wants, and I
Right.
agree.
Well, we've been, because Christina's on this committee. You know, like I said, this has all been committee, you know, that's the one thing, you know, I got to be the one that gets to present, which I enjoy anyway, but, so we would work with them. I know Christina, what we would do is if the funding's approved, then we would give her a dollar amount, probably like $300,000 would actually go toward the implementation of the lights themselves, because as I said, they're very expensive. And I know that she says, I think WDI does have some funds that they would be able to, put toward them. Again, the more dollars we can get, the bigger display that we can do. And then we would take, let's say, the $100,000 or whatever we feel like is sufficient. We would work through with our agency and look at what would a marketing, promotion specific for this cost us. And, just throwing out maybe $100,000 for that. And then in combination, we would work with WDI and, be able to purchase the lights. So.
Thank you. And then I think you mentioned that the Riverwalk Visitor Center was the highest visits by quite a bit. Do you know what those numbers look like?
I can get them to you. I'm not sure of the numbers. I know that we see, let's see, probably 50 to 60,000 at least a year there, and what we've tried to do, of course, looking in the future, we would love to look at some ways to improve it, where right now what we do is we open it 7 days a week, March 1 through October 31, and then in the winter, when the weather's nice, we try to open it Friday, Saturday, and Sundays, even during the winter months now, so.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, thank you.
Yeah, your consultant seemed like he did a really great job in pointing out the things that he pointed out. Now, I understand that you're requesting these funds through the ARPA
Yes.
program, right? Okay, then the second thing I was going to ask is with the maintenance, like with I guess it's number 4, who's doing the maintenance now?
Okay, number 4, let me.
It's
let
with,
me- okay,
you got
I've
the
my
bridge,
notes
you've
right
got the seat that's,
Oh, yeah. I think
rusty.
that's a combination. Some of those are city, like painting the benches and things like that would actually be city functions. Things on the private property, like the screening of the trash cans. I think that one particular picture he took is owned by Cape Fear Riverboats. That area is that parking lot. And, of course, the George is a private. So, it would be a combination of the city on the things actually on the Riverwalk as far as, like you said, sprucing up the benches and things like that. And then we would reach out to these retailers or the restaurants, et cetera, and say, hey, we're working on this as a group, and we would really love to see you, clean up. Some of it's just as simple as pressure washing. So.
right, it seems like low-hanging fruit.
Right.
Okay. All right, any other questions? All right, thank you for your
Right.
presentation.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Manager?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, we wanted to have the police department come forward this morning and do a preliminary review of the report that they're going to give tomorrow night. We wanted to give you an opportunity to have a little more interaction, ask any additional questions that you may want to ask in preparation for tomorrow night's presentation.
Okay.
So if you will indulge us, I'll ask the police chief to come forward and begin this presentation for us.
Love to hear. Thank you, sir.
Good morning. You're actually going to get 2 presentations. You will get the crime stats, and then we'll have our homeless outreach folks come in and give you a brief update on what they've been doing. I would like to start off by thanking all members of the Wilmington Police Department and our partner organizations for stepping up to the challenge. Our people were stretched thin again this year, but they were resilient. I'd also like to thank our citizens that navigated these challenges along with us. And it's important to thank all of you, city staff, and the manager. One thank you that is just so important is Mr. Barry Coburn, who is in the audience with me. He put together this presentation. He actually put together the last year's presentation, the years before that. Barry has been following crime in this city for a long time. He started following crime trends in the 90s with Chief John Cease, and he continued with Chief Ralph Evangelist for 15 years. Barry knows these crime trends, and he is in this data on a daily basis, And we're just so grateful to have Barry with us. These numbers that we'll share this morning are preliminary, and they will have minor changes once we submit them to the state. They do not include New Hanover County-owned properties, schools, Novant New Hanover facilities, the ports, Wrightsville Beach, and UNCW properties. These properties may be in the city, but they're covered by other law enforcement agencies that will be responsible for reporting at these locations. These crime numbers and working to keep them low is very important to us. These numbers you will see represents a small portion of what our folks do on a daily basis. Even though we are reporting less than 5,000 crimes to you today, we dealt with over 157,000 incidents. 157,000. And it's just amazing. Our daily workload includes stalled vehicles, traffic crashes, missing persons, domestic calls, medical assistance, and anything that a citizen may request. And these service demands, they do not go to sleep like normal people do. At 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, when most people in this room are asleep, our officers are responding to calls for service. On holidays, when most people are off, our officers are responding to calls for service. We rarely say no, so pretty much we respond to anything that you can imagine. Our personnel, in addition to this heavy call load, they documented numerous hours working special events and community events and outreach opportunities. They also put in countless hours training. A big part of modern law enforcement is training. We staff 27 concerts. They staff 5 major parades. And when I say staff it, when you were in that parade here recently and you went down, there was pretty much an officer at almost every intersection. And there was another group of officers working the outer perimeter. There was another group of officers on standby. There was a group of officers in the parade. They do this at least 5 times a year. They staff major marathons and races. They did a Cars and Coffee event every single month out at the Point at Barclay. They operate our Police Activities League. They do 2 sessions of summer camp with youth. They take kids shopping. We're doing a women's self-defense class, and countless hours went into our traffic safety efforts. We produce numerous public safety announcements and awareness videos. Next slide. Looking at our violent crime, homicides decreased by 1 on paper. 2 of the 12 homicides are classified as justifiable. One of these cases was an officer-involved shooting where our officers and our partner agency stepped up to the plate back in August. And the other one was a self-defense. The remaining 10 cases have all been resolved except for 1. Our clearance rate for homicides in the city of Wilmington is 90%. I don't know why anyone would want to commit a homicide in the city. 90%. Half of these 10 cases, unfortunately, had a domestic violence nexus, and our hearts and prayers are with the families and victims that were lost. Our rapes decreased by 39 incidents, our robberies increased by 12 incidents, and our aggravated assaults decreased by 2 incidents. Violent crime has decreased by 29 incidents compared to last year, which was a record year. And taking a quick snapshot at homicides, I was able to go out and look at homicides from some other cities in the state of North Carolina, and I'm not going to name the cities, but a few cities that are larger than us. One city that's only 80,000 people larger than us, they recorded 49 homicides. Another city, 33 homicides. Another city, 49 homicides. Another North Carolina city, 74 homicides. Another one, 96. And then we looked at a few cities that have similar demographics but are smaller than us. And one had 13 homicides and one had 11 homicides. So that'll just give you a rough idea on the homicides. Our property crime. Burglaries have increased by 97 incidents. Larcenies increased by 709 incidents, and I'm going to get into that a little bit more. Our motor vehicle thefts increased by 74 incidents, and arsons decreased by 5 incidents. Property crime increased by 875 incidents. Overall, Part 1 crime increased by 846 incidents as a result of the larcenies and car break-ins. Violent crime is down. Property crime is up, and property crime caused our Part 1 crime overall to go up. Any questions at this point? All right, next slide.
Oh, Chief. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
How you doing?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
I can't complain. I just wanted to chime in right there only because you asked if there were any questions, and you talked about property crime. And during this last election, we often heard about guns and crime and gang violence in our community. So, and I know that you and I talk about what's happening, that what's happening where we're getting where there are a lot more guns on the street. So could you speak to that a little bit,
Yes,
if possible, or is that in another slide coming up?
yes, we're going to touch on more guns on the street in another slide. And when we
Okay,
get
I'll wait then.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you. Next slide. Gunfire crimes have seen a tremendous increase nationwide over the past 2 years. We thought it was important to give you a quick snapshot of the city of Wilmington. In 2022, we experienced 97 incidents of gunfire assaults with 142 victims. In 2023, we experienced 107 incidents of gunfire assault with 167 victims. Our homicides related to shootings decreased by the number of incidents and victims. Overall, incidents increased by 10 and victims increased by 25. Any questions? Next slide. This next slide is our Part 1 crime versus population, and it does a comparable from 2002 to 2023. The blue line represents our population, and the red line represents the number of Part 1 crimes. With this slide, we start out with 6,942 Part 1 crimes and a population of 101,438 in 2009. In 2023, we grew, but our Part 1 crime came down. So very important that we share that slide with you. Next slide, please, Dylan. The next slide is our Part 1 crime as a percentage of the population. The blue line represents the population, the red line represents the percentage of the population based on the number of Part 1 crimes. In 2009, our population divided by Part 1 crime was 6.84%. In 2023, it is 3.73%, and it has gone up slightly because of those property crimes. Next slide. We're going to talk more into the violent crime, the good news. Next slide. The chart shows our violent crime trends over the years, and at our highest point in 2015, we were experiencing 879 violent crimes. At our lowest year, which it doesn't seem like it at times because of some of the sensationalization, but we only experienced 588 violent crimes this past year. All right, next slide.
Yep.
Couple questions.
The violent crimes that are occurring, is there a statistic kept that where these people are from? I mean, they occur within the city limits, I get that, but I mean, are these people all residents of the city?
Not necessarily. They're from all over the place, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. I'm sorry, these 588, that includes misdemeanor violence and felony violence?
Yes, if it's considered an assault, that would be captured under Part 1, which some of the misdemeanor assaults are captured there.
Okay, thank you.
One more. Chief, what year, just kind of looking at this graph here and seeing the anomaly of 2015, what year did we switch from UCR to NIBR?
It was the year prior to, I think, Chief Evangelist leaving. Barry, was that 2019? Okay. It was 2019, but we keep it in Part 1 so we can benchmark it easier.
Understood.
But when we report it, it is in NIBRs. And to give a quick definition for new council members, if you're not familiar, the difference between UCR and NIBRs. UCR is the Uniform Crime Report, and basically it was a way that we used to report crime to the state, and it is hierarchy-based. For example, if we respond to, say, a robbery and a murder, we would just report the murder because it is the highest crime. When we switch to NIBRs, which is the National Incident-Based Reporting System, it basically captures everything. It would report the murder and it would report the robbery. So we made the switch, but we decided in our presentation that we give to you, we'll keep it in UCR to just make it simple. But we can go back and benchmark over the years easier.
Are other agencies using Which one are other agencies use?
Everyone in the state has to use NIBRS because that's what the state has switched us to. I don't know how the other agencies are reporting
Okay.
out locally, but for us, it just makes it easy instead of trying to explain two separate systems.
All right, and then to follow up with the violent crime, help me understand what a violent crime is. It's like,
A shooting, a murder, a robbery. If we go back, Dylan, a couple of slides, you go back and we can pull it back up. Pretty much everything in that top category is a violent crime. Your murders, your rapes, your robberies, and your aggravated assaults. And everything else is your property crime. And then there's another category of crimes that's not included here, which would be category B or part 2 crimes. We report those crimes to the state and the federal government, but they do not publish those crimes. These will be the only crimes that will be published.
okay, so if two guys get in a fist fight, is that a violent crime?
It could be an aggravated assault depending on the circumstances, or it could be an affray. It just depends on what the outcome of that fist
Okay.
fight is.
All right, thank you.
All right, next slide, and we're going to talk about the firearms seized. If you look in 2018, we only seized 124 guns, and then that number started to increase. This past year, unfortunately, we seized 519 guns. And getting back to, I think, where Councilmember Spears was wanting to bring up the conversation, it's very easy for folks to get access to firearms on the streets. And we have gotten very aggressive in our policing tactics, and the guns are just out there. I could recall a point where we were seizing maybe 1 or 2 guns a week as a department. It's nothing for our officers to seize 3 or 4 of them on a shift. And the guns are getting out there through several means. One of them is the car break-ins. You would be amazed at how many people leave firearms inside of their vehicles. It is just mind-boggling to me. And what's happening is some of those guns that are being taken from those unlocked cars are being used on the streets. We had a shooting recently where we were able to determine that the gun was taken from a vehicle downtown. Then you have your straw purchases. We don't see that many straw purchases, but a straw purchase is where a person that can legally possess a gun will go out and buy a gun and then hand it over to a criminal. You have those. You have people that are trading guns to support habits. You have kids that may have a habit and they're just taking the gun out of the family's vault or safe and the family's not reporting it. So there are guns galore. I think last year in this country, there were like 17 million new gun purchases. So they're out there and they're unfortunately falling into the wrong hands. And we've done public service announcements on locked cars. We've done them that we're blue in the face. And we're not going to stop. We're going to continue to do them.
Chief, in your opinion, is the 124 reflected in 2018 versus the 519 this past year? Does that reflect an increase in gun access, firearm access, or does that reflect an increase in law enforcement identifying those guns?
I think a combination of both. You will hear our district attorney, he said this last year that this is the year of the gun, and we have placed a lot of focus on being more aggressive on going after these cases that involve firearms, but also they're just everywhere. They're just guns galore. If you recall, during the height of the pandemic, people were just out buying guns. They were buying guns, they were buying guns, and they were buying ammunition.
I think it's important for context that for folks to know that a lot of surrounding counties, rural counties, have policies in their DA's office where if somebody is charged with a concealed carry violation, and then they go and they get their concealed carry permit, those district attorney's offices will dismiss those cases. That is not the policy that we have in New Hanover County, and I think it's important for folks to know that because the first time you are convicted for violating a concealed carry permit, it's a misdemeanor. After that, you get into felony territory because you're not complying with firearms laws. So there is a distinction on how these laws are enforced in southeastern North Carolina.
All right, next slide.
No, Chief, I got one other-
Wait, can I chime in real
more
quick?
curious than anything. Back in, say, 2018, when you only had 124 incidences with seizure, gun seizure, what was the aggravated, what did the table look like then, if you can remember that, in 2018 versus 519 with the chart that we saw at the beginning of your presentation? I mean, dovetail on what David just said, is it better enforcement, ShotSpotter aiding in that, or is it just, I don't know how to ask the question, but it was just curiosity, from 124 to 519, was there an equal amount of aggravated assaults in 2018 as, say, there is in 2023?
We can go back and we can pull those
Okay.
Aggravated assaults, but I would say it's a combination of all of it. Now, one thing I can remember in 2018, we were much better staffed than we are now. And our folks are just aggressive, and I pushed them on guns. I really pushed them very hard on getting guns. And one of the things about gun violence is, for years, it was concentrated to certain locations within our city. Now, with gun violence and the mentality of some of our young folks, they operate off of opportunity. So it's not where you live, it's where I see you at, and I have the opportunity to strike back at you. So that could be anywhere in the city, and we've seen that. We've had homicides happen out on Oleander Drive on Mother's Day. We've had homicides happen at the city limits in Carolina Beach Road. So it's now about that opportunity for them, and it's very unpredictable. It's very unpredictable, and to be honest, I lose a lot of sleep worrying about an innocent person being struck by gunfire, and how can we be in the right place at the right time? And in some cases, we're right on top of the gunfire, and our officers are basically running to this gunfire, and it's just become very challenging for us.
Well, seeing it creep from 124, 327, 369, 457, 447, it's not, I mean, it's not good, but it's not as drastic as, say, going from 124 to 519 in one calendar year. So,
Yeah, but they're also very aggressive on going after these guns now.
thank you, Chief.
Councilman
Hold on,
Spears,
Chief.
did I hear you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Chief, you brought up a good point, and that's, you pretty much threw me an alley-oop, because that's what I wanted to talk about. It is the exchange of guns for drugs. And for many years, and I'll even, this is great to have a colleague who works as an assistant district attorney, because for many years, I have talked to our DA of New Hanover County, Mr. Ben David, where I've questioned or I've asked or insinuated that we need to put a little more focus on the people who trade guns for drugs. There's a lot of pressure and there's a lot of focus put on the people who have guns. There's a lot of pressure and a lot of focus on the people who sell drugs. But there are some people who trade guns for drugs in this community. And when I say community, I mean the entirety of the community. And then they report those guns to be stolen. And that's not the case. And I think we need to shine some light. We need to put some focus on those individuals, because they impact the crime that happens in all of our community as well. And I don't want us to overlook it. I'm not able to overlook it. I've never been able to overlook it. But I just want to be able to put that out there so that the public, and the public sees it, but maybe we're being purposely naive to some parts of crime and what crime looks like. But you alluded to it as well. You know, there's gun violence in Carolina Beach Road. There's gun violence in Landfall. There's gun violence downtown. But, you know, what does violent crime look like? actually. We know what people perceive violent crime to look like, but violent crime is colorblind. I just wanted to put that out there. I just want to let that resonate in the minds of people who have the ability to address these concerns that all members of our community are facing or dealing with.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
All right, next slide. This slide shows a comparison of gun seizures versus violent crime, which is pretty interesting here. The green represents violent crime, and the red represents gun seizures, and there is a correlation there between the two. It seems like as the gun seizures go up, violent crime tends to go down. Next slide. Let's talk about property crime, the not so good news. Next slide. This slide shows our property crime trends over the last 14 years. We started out at 6,000, and we were able to get it down around 18, 19. It kind of went down and then back up, and it increased substantially this past year, back up to 4,207 incidents. Next slide. Retail theft from merchants and larceny from autos are what's driving the increases. The thefts from merchants increased by 43%. And what I imagine in some of these cases, folks are walking in stores with their faces covered up because they can wear masks, which makes it harder for us when we go back and retrieve the video. And thefts from autos increased by 74%. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in the next slide. With property crime rising, so has our enforcement. In 2022, we made 311 arrests. In 2023, we made 424 arrests. Property crime arrests increased by 36%. Citations for property crime increased by 83%. In some cases, we're unable to arrest, so the appropriate enforcement action is a citation based on the law. And like I say, those increased by 83%. And even though our arrest and citation issuance increased, our workforce size did not. We did not increase the number of officers we have, and they're doing a lot more work. Arrest alone will not resolve crime, and I've said that before, and definitely property crime. With the breaking and entering auto larcenies, 95% of these cars are unlocked, 95%. And what's happening is people are just going out there pulling door handles. And I'm gonna hit on it again. Why would you leave your firearm in your vehicle? And this happens more than you can imagine. You don't leave your cell phone in your car, so why would you leave your gun in there? And as I've said, we've run numerous PSAs and stories with the media encouraging property to not be left in vehicles and locking your vehicles. And this is not exclusive to just Wilmington. And speaking with the sheriff, he's experiencing the same thing in the county, and I've spoken with other law enforcement leaders, and they're experiencing the exact same thing.
Okay. Yes, sir. The spike, if you will, is this, in your opinion, in any way tied to increase in our homeless population?
I suspect that that is a portion of it. I also suspect that juveniles are doing a lot of this.
What's that?
Juveniles.
Okay.
We have these rings of juveniles that are just going around terrorizing our community, whether it's the property crime or whether it's the break-ins.
Thank you, sir.
You mentioned the juveniles. Okay, is that a lot? I mean, you know, if I'm listening, I'm like, okay, I'm panicking. So tell me what you're saying when you say, like, the juveniles. Do we find it, is it gang-related? Is it?
Some of it could have a gang nexus, because in some of these cases, without digging too deep into the actual investigations, we're seeing where these juveniles are pulling door handles, getting guns, and then putting the guns in the hands of friends and others, and those guns are leading to other issues for us in the community.
Okay.
Next slide. Downtown and housing, and I always like to give this statement. The CBD, the Central Business District, is the area between the Cape Fear Memorial Bridge, the Holmes Bridge, 3rd Street, and the river. That is the CBD. Downtown covers the exact same borders, except it runs up to 5th Avenue. So that's the difference between the two. Next slide. The downtown district, actually, next slide. The downtown district saw 7 fewer crimes than last year. Next slide. The CBD saw 18 less crimes than last year. And I know folks were a little panicked when we had the shooting incident downtown. To date, we have made either 4 or 5 arrests in that case. We are very effective at going back and arresting folks if we have people to help cooperate. Some of the shooting incidents, the victims know who shot them. They just don't want to tell us. And if they don't want to tell us, it's not a whole lot we can do. Now, I will say this, in some cases, when we know that the victim is involved in criminal activity and they don't want to tell us, I've instructed our people, you charge them with whatever you can charge them with. So that's kind of the tactic that we're taking. We cannot tolerate this stuff. We cannot tolerate it. Next slide. Wilmington Housing Authority, and we have a great partnership with the Wilmington Housing Authority. Tyrone Garrett is awesome. It's a partnership that we have along with our sheriff, and we focus mainly on Creekwood, Houston Moore, Rankin Terrace, Hillcrest, Vesta Village, Solomon Towers, and Glover Plaza. Violent crime in our Wilmington Housing Authorities communities increased by 7% or 1 incident. Property crime in our Wilmington Housing Authority communities decreased by 24% or 9 incidents. Total Part 1 crime in our WHA communities decreased by 15%. And then last slide. Are there any other questions?
Okay. Any questions? All right. I have none. Thank you, sir.
And if you have any questions come up, I will be around today. Just call me on my cell phone. I would now like to introduce Sergeant Evans and Caitlin Maddox from our Homeless Outreach Unit. Such a great partnership with New Hanover County.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for having
Okay.
us. I am
And-
Caitlin Maddox.
Excuse me, can we get you to speak like right into the mic? Because that will make us hear you better.
Thank you for having us. I'm Caitlin Maddox. I'm the social work supervisor with New Hanover County as part of our Getting Home Street outreach program.
And I'm Sergeant Ron Evans. I supervise the officers that are a part of that team.
So we wanted to take a moment today to give you an overview of the program. I know we've got a couple new folks, but also just to give some updates on our stats from our last update in July. The Getting Home Street Outreach Program is a partnership between New Hanover County Health and Human Services, our mental health department, and the City of Wilmington Police Department. Our mission is to prepare unsheltered residents for shelter or rehoming by connecting them to service provisions in the community, enhancing public safety, and we strive to keep and maintain clean and safe areas where homeless tend to gather. We have been out in our community for just over a year now, and the way that our roles look, we have 4 social workers in the team, as well as 3 enforcement officers, myself and Sergeant Evans. Our social workers are assessing the needs of the individuals. Each person's goals, desires, progress is going to be individual to them, so we want to make sure that we're tailoring that to their self-determined goals. We're helping connect them to services throughout the community. We're following up and ensuring that they're making it to those appointments, getting the medical care they need, court appointments, things like that, tracking that progress, and then working in tandem with other community providers like WDI's Block by Block, Street Outreach, Coastal Horizons, PATH Street Outreach teams, and et cetera.
So for the police department side, our officers have to wear two hats, essentially. Establishing rapport with the homeless, with the unsheltered population, utilizing traditional community engagement functions, ensuring the safety of the social workers that we are working in conjunction with, and then also enforcing different rules and laws and ordinances by the city. And our officers, while we are a part of this program, they're still police officers. So there are going to be instances where they're going to be responding to some other calls of service that not necessarily have to do with the homeless and the unsheltered population. But again, wearing the two hats with our social workers, doing outreach, and then when it deems to be necessary, taking enforcement action on whatever laws or ordinances we come across. Just a few numbers on collaborating and assistance from last year. These are de-escalation of potential conflicts, and our officers in conjunction with the social workers are out in the field every day dealing with the population. There have been instances where a potential conflict, an issue, an argument of something may occur while we are there. These are things that we were able to resolve prior to someone calling 911 because of a dispute of things of that nature. So 93 times this has happened over the past year. In regards to assistant law enforcement calls, again, 93 times on the last one. 98 times calls are made into dispatch when it comes to our unsheltered population. There are instances where the officer or the social worker may already know the person that's involved, may already have a case with them, or have had prior interaction with them. So a few times, more than a few times, 98 times over the past year, these are the calls that we've had where social workers have been assisting the officers on our team and vice versa.
So one of the things that's important to understand is that a huge part of our jobs is to build rapport and gain trust. We say that change comes at the speed of trust. So some of the things that we're working on the folks we're serving to achieve, or again, based on their goals, is obviously the end goal of shelter or permanent housing. It's easier said than done in a lot of cases. We do have a shortage of shelter availability, and we know that we have an affordable housing crisis. But 128 times over the course of the year, we've been able to connect people to shelter. 22 times we have helped people become permanently housed. 29 times we've used a more creative approach to help folks get housed by mending or reunifying their former family support systems. So that might mean that we can help get them somewhere with a roof over their head in another city, in another state, whatever that might mean to get them back with a good former support system. 43 times we've helped people access treatment for their alcohol or substance abuse addictions, and 58 times we've connected folks to employment services or helped them get a job. So that might be some of our service providers in the community like Link, NC Works, Step Up, those type of things. So we also help them connect to tangible and intangible services in our community. Just shy of 2,000 times, 1,955 times, we've connected people to those tangible items, things like meals, showers, getting their ID or documentation replaced, bus passes, clothing. We have folks that when they are getting into those permanent housing situations, we help them get their unit all stocked up with the furnishing or the kitchenwares that they might need, as well as groceries for the pantry. 970 times we've been able to connect people to things that are more intangible. Those are going to be things like their mental health services, their doctor's appointments, legal or court assistance, helping them get Social Security, things like that.
Are these numbers, like if you see me today and then you see me again on Thursday, is that counted as two visits or two numbers? Not two persons, but two
Sure, yes, some of these are going to be instances of connections. So if I get you a meal today and we help you get you a meal later this week, we would count that twice.
Okay, and then the other question I wanted to ask, I'm sorry, is the folks that you're helping, sometimes I hear people say that people are being shipped here from other places. Are they like local people, most that you're serving? Are the individuals like that are right from this surrounding areas, or do you find them coming from Virginia or whatever?
I think it's a whole mix. I think that we have a lot of people who travel to this area because it's a wonderful place to live. I'm not from here. So we do serve anyone who's currently a resident of New Hanover County, but we do ask them, like we said, about do you have other connections from another area that might be an option for them to connect to return to.
Okay, thank you.
So one of the ways that we have also achieved that goal of striving to maintain clean and safe areas where homeless gather is by offering a service called the Bin Den. So this is a storage unit where we allow folks to put their belongings away and have a safe and secure place to store their belongings, freeing them up and allowing them to go to their job or get to their appointments and not have fear that their items might be stolen or tampered with or disposed of. So people can put their belongings away in the morning and access them again in the evening. Or, for example, do more, we saw a lot of seasonal changes, right? They're able to hold on to their winter clothes during the summer months and therefore freeing up some of those other resources for other folks in the community because they don't have to replace those every year. So since the beginning of the Bin Den, we've had 67 different folks utilize that service. We currently have 27, and as far as times that people are putting in or taking out items, we've done that 926 times. So all of these numbers are important, but we want to make sure that we keep at the core of all of this that every single one of those numbers is a human. And these success stories that make it a little bit more tangible and real, I think help really show the impact of the work that our team has been able to accomplish. So we initially had a focus on the downtown area, and we have since expanded out into the community, or throughout the county. So when we first started engaging with folks who were in the wooded area by MLK and Kerr, we met a couple, and by connecting them with those little resources, that meal, those basic services, that's how we're able to gain that rapport. And at one meal that we had the couple at, the gentleman walked away from the woman, and she almost immediately disclosed at her opportunity to have a one-on-one conversation with our social worker that she was the victim of domestic violence. And so we started working behind the scenes with our local DV services, with the DV services. She had told us that she had family in Michigan, and that was the main thing, that she wanted to get back to her family in Michigan. So we worked with DV services in Michigan. We worked with some local service providers. We were able to get her a bus ticket. We were able to get her a plan to reunify with her family, a hotel stay when she was ready to leave, and then we got her shipped up on the bus and headed back to family. She called when she was on the way and shared that she was so grateful for our team's help and support and helping her make that really difficult transition away from her abuser. So that's everything we have for you today, unless you have any questions.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, thank you for this presentation, and thank you so much for everything you're doing. I had a question about the outcome slide, number 5. So you went through that, and that's awesome that we were able to help so many people. The question I have is, how many people were we unable to help get into shelter because of shortage of space?
I don't have an exact number for you. I know that if we had shelter availability, we would have a lot of people who would choose to stay there. I can tell you just as a, I'm not going to do this exactly accurately, so please don't quote me, but for example, right now, over the last 5 days, we've had our warming shelter open, and I know on their second night, they had over 100 people that stayed there. So that points to the fact that there would be people who would choose to get out of the elements if given an opportunity to stay in shelter.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir, Luke.
Also want to thank you for putting this presentation together and the hard work, important work that you do for our community. Will this presentation also be happening tomorrow Tomorrow, all right, excellent, just to get it, so I can have a chance to digest and maybe bring some other questions, and I may direct them to you beforehand, Sergeant Evans, just to get some clarification as I'm putting some points together for tomorrow, but looking forward to it, thank you.
And with that, I would like to submit to council, even with this initiative that we have going on in conjunction with police and the social workers. I understand that homelessness is an issue across the city, and it has been for the past year, if not longer, since we've had this initiative going. However, I would like for folks to understand that homelessness within itself is not just a police issue. Caitlin and I have had the privilege of attending the mayor's conference with Mayor Sappho last month in Concord, along with other entities within the area, WDI, Coastal Horizons, the Good Shepherd, the leadership from those organizations. And we, as law enforcement officers, we're going to do what we need to do in regards to providing a service to the community. So I myself, over the past year, have fielded numerous calls, numerous emails about the concerns that citizens, business owners have regarding the population. We're going to do our outreach to provide services to the population. At the same time, we understand that enforcement action has to be taken on those who just don't want to follow the rules, if you will. And that's what we're doing. That's what we have been doing. Chief Williams has given us direction on how that needs to go for those who just don't want to play along. So while some of that information was not in this presentation, I can assure you that we are addressing those calls and concerns and things of that nature in the midst of doing our outreach as well.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. It's dangerous.
So before I was on council, long before I was on council, I encountered an unsheltered person, and I didn't really, she wasn't committing a crime, she wasn't doing it. I didn't want to call 911. Is there a non-emergency number that we can let people know to call if they encounter somebody who could use your help?
Yes, ma'am, there is, and that's one of the things that I had mentioned in the Bears meeting last month. You know, people call police for everything. I got a flat tire, call the police. My cat's in the tree, call the police. But to answer, and maybe that's because 911 is only 3 numbers, so it's a lot easier to remember. That being said, yes, there is a non-emergency number folks can call, and I will give you that number so we can pass that around. And it just goes to our 911 center. So if folks want police presence that's not technically an emergency, they can call that number and we'll respond.
Could we make sure that that gets published on our website? Because I was recently looking, and it was a broken page talking about homeless services, and I think that...
and I'm sorry, what website? With the police website? Or?
No, well, the city of Wilmington, if I'm looking for, help for an unsheltered person.
Yes, ma'am.
We need to make sure that people can find that non-emergency number to call.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Great report.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor,
sir.
Pro Tem, a couple of items just to tell you. Sergeant Evans referenced the fact that he attended the mayor's meeting in Concord last month. This group did attend, and while we're not getting it all right, there's still plenty of room for improvement, and everybody's facing the same thing across the state. Sergeant Evans, I know, got reached out to by at least one other city to at least quiz them and to talk to them about what we were doing. And so I think that is a good indication of success. Again, it's a small measure, it's one aspect, and we've got a long way to go. But I think the fact that these folks were asked to go and speak to that issue and then were reached out to afterwards speaks volumes about the effort that these folks are doing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
We do tend to be a destination city, particularly in the warmer months. I mean, it's been like that for a long time, and probably more so now than ever. But thank you very much.
All right. I guess last question. Are we looking at funding them for more people? Because did I hear you say you only have four each?
We have 4 social workers, myself as the social work supervisor on the county side, 3 LEOs, and Sergeant Ron Evans, who supervises the program.
All right. I know we need more. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes. Mr. City Manager, anything else?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, that is all. I will say that both of these presentations will occur again tomorrow night. We think they're important enough to be able to have the entire public visit and listen to these presentations while we are live on television. With that, we are done for this morning from our perspective.
Any other questions, thoughts? Yes, sir.
Could you give us, provide us with an update here about when we can expect to be in our new building? I'm sorry, I didn't have that on. Can you give us an update as to when we can expect to be holding these meetings in our new building?
We are going to give you a more complete update at your workshop next Monday, but in general, we are in the process right now of trying to finalize drawings for work that needs to be done on the 1st and 3rd floors with regard to renovations. We will get those probably out in the next 60 or so days, but it's going to be probably October before you have a meeting in the new building.
All right, thank you.
I'm sorry, quickly, can we scroll down to the ordinances one more time?
Can we do what now?
Okay, thank you very much. I thought I saw a discrepancy on this and what was on the website, but I was incorrect. Thank you.
Okay. Any other thoughts, questions? Hearing none, meeting adjourned.